Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's lesson. We'll be discussing the importance of the radio industry, and I have with me a very special guest speaker. We have Mark Harvard, who is currently the Director of Communication at Clear Branch United Methodist Church. He also works as weekend on-air talent for WDJC, has a long career in the radio industry, and also works freelance audio. So if you think you are going into media and only doing one thing, Mark Harvard's about to prove you wrong. But Mark is an old friend of mine. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mark.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm honored to be asked, and hopefully we can help shed some light onto a few things.
Excellent. Well, tell our students a little bit about your experience in the radio industry and some of the changes you've seen throughout your career.
Oh wow! Started when I was 16 years old at a little 5,000-watt AM oldies station in Sylacauga, Alabama. They hired me basically because they needed somebody to push buttons for Atlanta Braves baseball games, and this is when they were horrible, so no one was listening. But yeah, then suddenly the season ended because they didn't go to the World Series. Season ended, and it was an oldie station, so I got a chance to actually pretend I was a DJ for a little bit, and I just fell in love. And I did that the rest of high school. When I got to college, went to the University of Alabama, and I was driving back and forth every single night. I was working at a station that doesn't exist anymore in Birmingham, a top 40 station, and just throughout the years I've just always just bounced back and forth between radio and ministry and that sort of thing. And I've done country, I've done oldies, I've done talk radio. I did talk radio for a couple of years, produced and hosted, and then now I'm doing weekend shifts over at WDJC. We're doing Christian radio, and it's every format has its little idiosyncrasies that emerge, different styles, different little pitfalls that you fall into. But it's interesting. It's exciting. It's fun. It really is a job that if you feel like you have some sort of knack for it, you have a blast.
Yeah, that's great advice to have passion for what you're doing within media. So you talk about being able to transfer among media genres. And I know a lot of my students say, I really love rock or I'm really into hip hop. And that's the kind of radio DJ I want to be. Maybe they want to be sports broadcasters on the radio. What would you suggest to a student who has their mindset on one format in today's era of media convergence?
Well, some of those formats don't have as much, I guess, wiggle room. Like if you're interested in sports radio, that's what you want to do, you're not going to be a great fit for an oldies station. There's not a lot of overlap, but you might be okay cutting your teeth in the news talk format. If you want to do rock radio, you may want to, you may settle, I guess, for short term. If you can't just dive right into a rock station, which in this day and age is probably not the best way to go, you can do maybe the hot AC stuff or the pop stuff and find some sort of crossover. One way I would just say the way I got into radio really doesn't exist as much anymore. The mom and pop stations aren't out there and that sort of thing. So the way to get in now is to find menial lower level courses of action and jobs and work your way up. Some advice my father gave me years ago that I've always found is as a source for helping me through things is always work harder than your pay scale. Get in as a board op or as a promotions assistant and work your tail off. Be dedicated, be dependable, be someone who they don't think is just going to slack off and, well, let me make sure this person's over here. Be the person that they know is going to be over here taking care of stuff. That way, when an opportunity comes up, they think, oh, well, he'd be a good fit for that. When I was at Crawford Broadcasting for 14 years before I left it to come here. I started as a part-time board op for their news talk station there. And then worked my way up to production director. And then I was on the air doing afternoons. And I was managing. At one point, they had me flying all over the country working with other radio stations in the company that were having problems. So yeah, just because I was dependable, and level-headed, and they knew I was going to work my tail off.
Yeah, and I think you really speak to an important aspect of media, especially from a professional side, is just always saying yes. Just be willing to do what they ask of you.
Mhm.
Um, and when would you suggest that students start getting into this? We have some freshmen, we have some seniors. Like, when should they get involved if they're interested in a media career?
You can find those low level, the low hanging fruit of occupation during college. You can easily find that stations that'll be looking for board ops, that sort of thing. A lot of those stations will work around your college schedule. A lot of times it'll be we need somebody on the weekends. We need to handle the shifts that nobody wants to work. Those are the shifts you're going to get, and you're going to be ending up in, but that's okay because you won't be there forever. If you prove your worth, if you don't slack off, you don't get lazy, you won't be there forever because someone else will leave, and you'll those slots create within themselves.
Yeah. And better to have those low paying jobs in college when your parents are still supporting you most of the time, or
Absolutely,
the
absolutely. And
scholarships
also
are.
it's also one of those things where, when you graduate, if there's an opportunity available, they're going to go to the person that's already been there for 3 years as a part-timer to make them full-time, because they don't have to train you on company culture. They don't have to train you on how we do things in this area. You already know it. You know what the rules are. You're clearly defined in it, and you've got a history there.
Yeah, so that's why internships are critically important, something I always stress to students. So tell us a little bit about the radio industry in terms of music. We've seen, through the history of radio that DJs play a really important part in deciding what is popular, what's aired. So tell me a little bit about your role as a DJ.
As a DJ, well, I feel like I'm about to bust some bubbles here. Um, the on-air DJs, for the most part, have very little to no say in what they play. It's all most of that stuff is decided weeks ahead of schedule. If you're lucky, it's decided by one music director on the local level. More than likely, it's decided by someone at a corporate hub in Nashville, or they decide what. Okay, all of our stations are going to play this new single this week. We have a deal with the record company, and we're gonna push this song from, I don't know who's popular, from Charlie Puth. Is he somebody? Yeah, yeah, okay. uh-huh. They're gonna push this single from this guy, and that's a lot of it's decided by then. You don't schedule, you don't play. Request shows are rare and few and far between, because you have record companies that are expecting a certain number of spins for their song. And so, yeah, that's valuable airtime that they could be playing the new. I really should know more pop groups. The new Iggy Azalea or whatever. What does that say about me that she was the first person that popped in my head?
I don't know, but I
But
never can come up with an example either. It's fine.
but yeah, it all that's decided way out of your hands. It's not something that you're going to have a whole lot of say in. You do get to interview artists sometimes, but you're not. Yeah, you don't get to really choose when you play a song at a certain time.
Right. So that old era of like the Dick Clarks who get to decide the music, who shape the music, that's kind of over. So tell us a
Right.
little bit about what are some of the key skills that someone interested in going into radio need?
Um, you need to be able to, well, speak clearly, with enthusiasm, be able to really connect with your listeners. And a lot of that is a different thing based on the format. If you're in news talk radio, a lot of that group, who I call the red meters, they're the ones. I mean, they like the angry, the assertive. We're gonna get them, or we're gonna defend them, or whatever side you fall on. You need that. You need the exact opposite for pop radio or rock, or even rock radio. For country radio, you need more laid back, that sort of thing. You need that sort of feel. But as far as just personal qualities, um, being genuine, the ability to make someone really feel like you're talking specifically to them, and not just they're not eavesdropping on a conversation you're having with a big group of people. Being able to create a connection, that's the biggest thing that gives you lasting power in radio.
Yeah, and a lot of that is basic storytelling skills that you develop through your media writing. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us a little bit about how the industry has changed and how you, as an on-air personality, have adapted to that. Obviously, streaming has overtaken a lot of broadcast radio. So, how are you adapting? What are some of the emerging technologies that you utilize within your career, both as a communications director, but then also as an on-air personality?
Well, when I started in radio, like I said, I'm 44 now, and I was 16 years old. We still had albums that we played, and we had half our library was an album, half the library was in CDs. Had two CD players stacked, and everything was that's where all the music came from. Now everything's on a hard drive, one centralized server within the building, that sort of stuff. Um, and even that has started to fall by the wayside. Um, I go to the actual radio studio once every quarter, maybe. I don't set foot in the building anymore, because I've got a home studio set up. I got a Zoom L8 board that I use, a Shure 7B, SM7B microphone, that I use, and I got a soundproof room in my home that I use for that sort of stuff and some of the other voiceover stuff that I do. Um, and I sound, it's still me, but I sound quality wise the same as I would in the studio. You never know. And through the whole COVID lockdown thing, you saw a lot of that. Entire radio stations that no one's allowed to come to the building. Everybody do your shows from home, and radio pretty much kept up with it. They didn't really miss too many beats. That's something that wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago. So it's that's a really exciting way to do that. And honestly, when everything got locked down, the folks that were already set up at their houses to do stuff from home, those are the ones who were in an incredible position when the lockdown started up. That's how I got ended up with a bunch of extra freelance stuff, because ad agencies couldn't bring people into voice commercials in their big studios, and so they had to look for people that were already set up. So I ended up doing some work for some car dealerships and some political stuff, and because I had the gear and the setup ready to go. So that sort of stuff that it wasn't possible back then. That technology has kind of been able to push us through. And honestly, to be honest, it's a upper level podcasting setup is essentially what it is at home, but it works.
So keeping up with technology, critically important for a media professional. Not only for COVID lockdowns, hopefully we don't have to do those anymore,
Yeah.
but it can make a difference in your professional life, especially when you're involved in freelancing.
Sure.
Well, Mark, any last words of advice for our students?
Work hard. I'll repeat what I said earlier. Work higher than your pay scale. You're not going to walk into a building thinking that you're going to show everybody how to do things, because even if you do know a better way, it's going to take you earning some credibility within that building to get everybody to really listen to you. But pay your dues, get in there, and be creative and be imaginative, because you never know what that big step you're going to be able to make is going to cause. So yeah, don't be afraid of taking a few risks.
Well, great advice. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy day. I know I appreciate it. I'm sure my students do as well. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Mark is going to share his Twitter handle with us. So if you have any questions for him, make sure you reach out on Twitter. Hope you guys have a great day.